That was impressive.
Research really keeps you open to a lot of things.
Here's one right here, Ryan. Under a leaf, yeah.
In research, a lot of times you'll come up with a solution and it'll work on paper, but in practice, there's a lot more variables that you can't fully account for.
Oh, wow.
There we are.
There's a bunch in there.
We are studying the combined effects of urbanization and climate change on ants, native forest ants here in Ohio. And we are interested in looking at how they respond both in terms of evolutionary responses, behavioral responses, cellular responses, and then how they interact with one another and the greater environment.
Think about it, we're all living things, and none of us like the cold. When you draw a conclusion, it's like an ant is similar in size to something a little bit bigger, just similar to something a little bit bigger. And everything has the same general makeup at the cellular level. We all have mitochondria, we all have proteins, and we're all the same person when you look at it real itty bitty. It's just a vast difference when you look at a tiny little ant versus a person.
Yeah, they're all down in their little nest compartment.
And I think that's what a lot of people are wondering too, is like, why should I care about this ant and this acorn in this warming treatment? I think that's a really cool part of looking at animals, is what you can learn about humans and human nature from them. So I think it's like really cool that we might be able to apply it to people and to our cities. We've had ants having their whole colonies in these, like on the stem of a plant.
So we have just some preliminary findings. Some interesting things that we found is when we subject the same species of ants collected from the same place to different freeze regimes, which means basically we'll put a certain group in the freezer and keep them at a certain frozen temperature for 3 to 5 weeks and then bring them out, versus that basically identical group subjected to freeze-thaw cycles, so multiple freeze and then thaw and freeze and thaw. We see some interesting things happening with their morphology. Interestingly, the bodies of the ants that are subjected to freeze-thaw cycles are larger, which means or indicates that they are more hydrated than the ones that are just frozen consistently, but also they have higher mortality rates, so they are surviving less often than the ones that are just sort of put into dormancy and then allowed to remain and then brought out at the end of the season.
There's all their larvae and everything.
And so that's why it's important to understand climate change. And again, we see we are all subjected to those same effects regardless of whether you're an ant or a human.
Oh, they're so cute. You can see them scurrying and getting their larvae.
I think, everybody kind of wants to leave their mark on something and make a change. A lot of times in science, we'll have like our preliminary experiments with the warming chambers to see if that setup works for this type of experiment. And, I might be graduated and moved on then and not really see a lot more of it, but that foundation is there for someone else to come along and kind of, pick it up and take it to the next level. So I think that we're changing the world, leaving a mark in that way.